We're just going to go ahead and continue with Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest. Yes, so again, this is another game from the world of darkness, and for those of you coming in, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Let's just keep going from where we left off. Okay, so we just finished going through the forest. We went on through the greenery. The buzzing in my ears slowly decreased. We made our way back. Serendipity. As we walked through town, Anya nudged me and pointed at a tall, broad-shouldered, freckled guy standing at the bus stop with a lost expression on his face. I remembered his face from the pictures on social media. It was the friend who'd stood me up earlier. Well, again, going with the low aggression options seems to have worked, so let's just say we're glad to see him. Okay, so this is Bartek, and he is sympathetic with us. That's good. Bartek? I waved to him and smiled. Sorry I missed you earlier. Maya, what are you doing here? He blurted with surprise when he saw me. I was sure you missed the bus. We started walking and talking. His accent was broad and East European. I flooded him with questions. Anya liked him. I caught him looking at me. Ooh. So it looks like we get to actually choose how the story is going to go. So is he gonna, is there gonna be a little bit of a love triangle between Anya, Maya, and Bartek? I don't know. I'm not very into people who aren't punctual, so maybe I'll just give him to Anya. I think that's just me. I don't know. If you're making plans with me, I'm gonna, expect you to keep your word at that. So I'll just say Anya liked him instead. Anya took an immediate liking to him. I could tell. I could always smell romance in the air. We walked along the only street in the village, nearing the center, if you could call it that. Every house had a garden, and the air was dense with the fragrance of flowers. So, did you find anything linking me to the forest? I asked. Bartek shook his head. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Sorry. He was avoiding my eyes. A trickle of sweat ran down his temple. He looked afraid. What's up, man? I smiled. Spill the beans. I'm a big girl. I can take it. But he just clammed up. You know what? I think you should drop it. I stopped. I don't understand what it was almost too easy means, but to me it's very obvious that he's afraid of something. So I'm going to go for that option. I stopped. I turned to Bartek and touched his arm. What's eating at you, man? He shrugged and shook his head. You can tell us, Anya added gently. Taunted him a bit, I gave him time. Well, I'm not into taunting. It sounds like he's scared, and plus it looks like this willpower thing. I haven't really used much willpower or rage to begin with, so let's just do that. Gave him time. Okay, and that made our spirituality grow up. I'm just proving to you I'm an incredibly spiritual person, a more spiritual person than I thought I would be. And Bartek seems friendly. Also, I noticed under Maya's name she's called a Hamid. So, in Vampire the Masquerade, I mentioned this in the last video, the kind word for vampires is kindred, and it looks like the kind word for werewolves in this game is Gauru, so it looks like Hamid might be the Gauru word for human. So vampires call humankind, And I guess Gauru call humans Hamid. I swallowed the urge to shake him out of it and just waited. It took him a while before he finally opened up. Well, he brushed his forehead with the back of his hand. I did ask. I started with the old people here. I told them that my friend from the States was looking for her roots and wanted to know about the place her family came from. You know the drill. At first, people were very, receptive. I waited for the other shoe to drop. And then I mentioned your name. He shook his head. Well, he's talking, so let's urge him to continue. Bartek, no dramatic pauses, please, I urged him. The tension is killing me. One of the old men here told me to go to hell. The other spat on the ground and his wife crossed herself. For a moment, he looked younger and smaller. And then my own grandmother told me to stop asking. She said something else as well. I tensed up. What? I asked. She told me to pray for you. Suddenly, the sweet, golden afternoon wasn't so sweet and golden anymore. Who was I? I felt shivers run down my spine. I laughed. Well, I'm not gonna laugh at him because he's taking it seriously. He clearly went through something to ask us for this. I'm gonna ask, who was I? I think that's, the one that's the response that's going to lead us to more information. I looked at Bartek and I saw that the stories he'd heard had clearly strained something between us. He was afraid of me. Who was I? We walked in silence, but my mind was in overdrive. People didn't want to talk. And that could only mean one thing. I was on the right track, and just like that, the willpower I lost is back. Okay, hint updated. People were scared to talk about your family and the forest, and we progressed our goals. That's great. My pulse quickened and I tensed up like a hound that smelled blood. I was on the right track, but I needed to gather my thoughts. It was good to meet you in person, I said, but I need to be going. All this traveling and walking through the forest, it was exhausting, I smiled. Sure, where are you staying? It turned out we were going the same way, of course. We went back to the B&B. The first evening. The B&B was quaint. I left Anya and Bartek outside. They were lost in the conversation and didn't even notice that I was gone. Oh, that's cute. At least we can have a cute little love or little romance story going on. And it's probably better this way because if Maya is a werewolf or Gauru, then, it'll be a much happier ending. When I got out of the shower, Anya was back, smiling and a little flustered. What a day, she smiled. So, what do you think? I made a quick mental inventory of everything that happened that day. They were cutting down the forest. Place of power sure made an impression. Daniel was a strange guy. I was moved by the story of the wolves. I was freaked out by the vision at the barrows. Okay, so which one do we want to talk about? I'm really curious about the story of the wolves. Obviously, this is a werewolf game, so let's, emphasize the wolf theme going on here. The wolf cubs that were kidnapped and died in captivity, I sighed. That story stayed with me, She put a hand on my arm. Divided families, huh? It's okay, Maya. Okay, so we can go back to ask about everything. Okay, let's say they were cutting down the forest. can't believe they're logging here. Oh, okay, so now Anya's friendly towards us. That's nice. I shook my head. Isn't the forest on a UNESCO list or something? Yeah, I know. I went to check out this protest people were talking about. Maybe we could go there tomorrow. Place of power sure made an impression. I felt this strange energy in the place of power before I met Cornell. It still freaks me out. Cornell seems cool, though, Anya answered, and he seemed to really understand what you're going through. I don't know if I want to call Daniel strange. I don't know if she'll respond well to that, but let's talk about the barrows and see what she says. Something strange happened when I was visiting the old barrows, I said, and instantly regretted it. Never mind, I was probably just dehydrated. Yeah, it was probably it. But you looked weird, she laughed nervously. A lot of things were weird today if you think about it. Alright, let's not call Daniel strange. Let's be nice and say we don't feel like talking anymore. You know what? I'm seriously tired. Let's call it a day, shall we? Soon we were both in our beds, ready to sleep. Even though I was tired, sleep didn't come quickly. Anxiety was spreading its cold, writhing roots deep in my chest and stomach. I lay there for some time looking at the silver rectangle painted on the wall by the moonlight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the tangled branches, the stone Daniel asked me to throw, the leaves. I came here with one question, and now I had so many. But I felt I was getting closer to my answers. I should go see the logging protest. Okay. I felt that the answers I was looking for were within my reach. I should go to the logging protest, find Cornell, and make him talk. After a long while, all these thoughts became blurry. They slowly started to turn into pictures, sounds, and colors. I drifted off. Two black holes underneath a crooked tree stare into the night, wide and vigilant. I tremble. Something is coming. It's huge and monstrous. I'm a cub, I am a seed. I don't want to say I'm a seed, I'm gonna say I'm a cub, because it ties back to that, to the story. I am a wolf cub, like the ones my grandfather told me about. I will grow and my fangs will become sharper. I will taste blood. I feel a pull, and I surrender to it. I run toward a clearing. There are piles of fresh corpses of people who died too young, skinned and mutilated. Their loved ones stand around them, grieving, unable to do anything, waiting. And suddenly, they are just trees and tree trunks. I look around, I weep, I start dancing. I don't want to start dancing because I don't think this is a particularly lovely sight here. It's a very sad sight, but clearly but I think I'm gonna look around. Instead, I wanna raise up that cunning stat and the analytical stat a little bit more. Because right now, I'm just all spirituality. I want to balance that out. I look around. My nostrils flare. Who did this? Who murdered the trees? Okay, yeah, I like that because now we see that it was just metaphorical for the logging, of course. There's a stench in the air like meat rotting in acid, but somehow worse. I see the monstrous army. Their mandibles are whirling chainsaws. Their long metal arms are wrapped with black pipes that look like glistening intestines. Their smell is vile. They wait, unmoving. I charge at them, I turn to the forest for answers, I pay my respects to the dead. Well, let's go to the forest for answers because I don't know about you, but a little wolf cub against a chainsaw is not a good... You know, it doesn't sound like it's going to end up in a good way, and paying your respects to the dead, I mean, yes, it's good to do, but maybe not in this situation when you're staring down at people, so let's turn to the forest for answers. The dead don't hold answers, and neither do the machines. I walk between the trees, trying to hear their wisdom. They whisper to me, telling me to look at the sky. There between the stars, two shapes circle each other. An old, sad wolf with gray hair and a white weasel. They keep their eyes on one another as they continue their dance. Suspicious, but not hostile. We need to fight the enemy. The awful, rotting stench. I know that much. But how can we do that when we don't trust each other? They stop. They look at me and the clearing. I look at them cautious, I give them my blessing. Huh. Personally speaking, I would look at them cautious because I'm that kind of person that takes a long time to decide things. But now that I have this option with the spirituality and the willpower, I kind of want to pick that one. So, because I am so incredibly spiritual, this is probably the path that I'm leading Maya down towards anyway. And oh, and Pusha is now loyal to me! That's wonderful! Okay. I spill my blood and bless them with words that I do not recognize, but that I understand. They come down to me and their voice is the voice of the Pusha. We've been calling you, and you finally came. I wake up. Oh, let's see how this affects our little adventure at the logging site tomorrow. Chapter 2. Also, I just want to point out I am very grateful that they spelled out phonetically how to pronounce Pusha, because I would have just butchered that the whole stream. The day after. The next morning was full of sunshine and birdsong. I could smell the heat of the afternoon building. Those long, honey-like hours in late June when the earth isn't tired of its own warmth yet. But it was crisp and pleasant now. I got up. I felt overwhelmed. The weight of the previous day had coiled up somewhere in my chest, and I didn't really know what to think about everything I'd learned. And then there was the dream. Then I remembered the dream. The clearing, the animals in the night sky, waiting for me. I took a shower, ate something without really paying attention, and went out. Anya joined you. We were halfway through the forest when Bartek caught up with us. You're right, Anya. The protest is important. Okay, so Bartek is coming along too. As I walked toward the logging site, I noticed there were more people heading that way. A police car, a couple of SUVs, a TV truck, young people on bicycles, a green Land Rover from the Forest Services. When I got to the site, it felt utterly surreal, like I'd stepped onto a movie set. Anya looked around. So what's the plan? To stop the logging, I had to figure out the forest. I needed to find someone. Okay, figure out the forest, I needed to find someone. So yeah, our goal is to figure out the forest. I think we established that in the last chapter and the last stream, that, you know, our goal here is to solve the mystery of the forest. But also Cornell, we mentioned Cornell too and how he might be able to talk to us. I don't know. I kind of feel like going further into the forest might be more useful, or figuring out the forest might be more useful. I don't know. I'm gonna go find Cornell instead. I think, you know, actually talking to a person might help. I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like talking to someone else and, you know, getting to know that other character will move things along a little further. There's someone I had to find and press for answers. Ooh, Cornell or Daniel? Let me think about that, because Daniel... Well, they both have a connection to the forest there, and they both seem to have a respect for each other. Let's talk to Cornell, because we talked a lot to Daniel yesterday. I mean, we spent the whole day with him. I need to talk to Cornell, the guy from the place of power. He seemed to know a lot about the forest's hidden secrets. Looked around. I looked around. On my right was the ancient forest. On my left was the freshly torn clearing. Ahead of me, ruining the view, were huge logging machines and a group of people arguing in their shadow. I thought the machines were sucking the life out of the air. They were like a wound, not just pieces of equipment. I looked at the clearing, I looked at the machines, I looked at everyone. Let's look at the people here, you know. I'm interested in... Let's expand this cast of characters even further, shall we? There were people there, too. The loggers were sitting idly on the tree trunks, sharing cigarettes. The police that stood between them and a colorful group of protesters were visibly uneasy and twitchy. I saw some reporters who were clearly bored because no one was doing anything interesting. The harvesters loomed over the clearing, reeking. And I saw a familiar face among the protesters. Cornell was arguing with a woman with gray dreadlocks. The protesters were clearly conflicted. Maybe I could solve the conflict? They clearly needed some advice. It could be fun. Well, let's try to solve the conflict. Let's not assume that they need advice and we're smarter than them. Okay, cool. My analytical went up. I thrived in solving conflicts, so I went closer. One of the police officers, young and nervous, said something I didn't fully understand. Let's try smiling. Let's see what that does. I smiled at him and said, "I don't understand in my best Polish." He smiled back. "Oh," he said, "you're one of them, and let us go." Also, the police seem to be getting sympathetic towards us. I do like that everyone is being sympathetic to me right now. It makes me feel a lot better because I want to be everyone's friend. I know that's not always possible in these games, but we'll see. Then I noticed that someone joined us. And then I noticed that someone used the commotion to sneak with us past the police. A girl with disheveled, bleached-out hair. "Don't worry," she patted the officer on the arm. "It was an awful pickup line anyway." He recoiled. You shouldn't touch me, ma'am." Oh, that's cute. We'll just smile. I smiled at her and wanted to say something, but I was interrupted. "Pat!" Cornell called from the gathering. "Could you come here? I need you to show Olga that chart." She sighed, reaching to her backpack and taking out a tablet. "And they're at it again," she murmured under her breath and winked at me. "Coming." And we went toward the activists. I haven't met anyone yet that I don't want to be friends with, or I wouldn't want to be friendly with. But then again, I don't know everyone's motivations yet. As I walked toward Cornell, I heard more and more of the argument. "Olga, you can't," Cornell was saying. Pat stood next to him with her tablet. She looked a bit amused. "Do not," fucking tell me what I can or can't do, Cornell, the woman with dreadlocks interrupted. I can, because they are destroying our mother. I can fight with all the means at my disposal, even if that means burning those harvesters to the ground. You can't burn machinery, but okay. I noticed Daniel standing near her. He took a few steps back, went towards one of the harvesters, turned his back on us all, and pissed on the machine. Okay, so now we know where Daniel stands. Olga smirked. Aw, Daniel, you know how to bring the point home. He looked at her confused. Cornell raised his eyebrows. Burn the harvesters? Cornell asked calmly. And this drought? Olga, are you out of your mind? You know what I mean. We fight them any way we can, because this is a fucking war, she spat. He sighed. You've never seen real war, and it shows. Nobody is shooting at us, and believe me, we want it to stay that way. We need a peaceful protest. I approached Cornell. Okay, so I guess this is where we are going to decide. This is where some of the division is going to become. It's going to come into play. Hi, we need to talk, I said, approaching Cornell. Hello, Maya. Could you wait? I'm right in the middle of something here. In the middle of something? Normally I would wait for them to finish, but it was important. I looked at them. I wouldn't interrupt, but you know, this isn't me, it's Maya talking, so... I looked at them both. Olga with her fury and passion. Cornell with his cool, professional demeanor, and shared without any reservations what I felt about the situation. There was a fine line to tread. It wasn't about personal victory. I mocked them both. I'm not gonna mock them. What does it mean it wasn't about a personal victory? I don't want to say there's a fine line to tread, because I feel like that's taking the middle ground, and to solve conflict, you can't always take the middle ground. I'm gonna say it's not about personal victory, because it feels like everyone's ego's in the way. To me, that's how I read it. It's not about personal victory. It's not about people's, you know, Olga winning versus Cornell winning. So that's how I interpret that. I hope that's what it means in this case. Okay, so now we're spiritual. Olga cautious, Cornell friendly, Daniel neutral. Honestly, there are a lot more solutions than violence, I said in a clear voice. And I think that saving the forest is more important than winning a war. Or a dispute. I only inflamed the situation. Okay. I kind of wish, you know, this is a similar criticism I had about some of the Dragon Age games. I kind of wish that you would know, that you would be able to see what someone is going to say after you pick an option. Like with Dragon Age, like you can't always read the tone of the dialogue options, so it's difficult to know how you're going to come across. The argument attracted more and more people. Someone old shook their head and moved forward. They had deep wrinkles, a narrow mouth, and the unisex grace of a tired, heroin-preserved rock man. I totally dug their style. They looked out of place. You know what? I like if it, you know, being an older person and still rocking. I kind of like it. Totally. Let's dig their style. They had shoulder-length, disheveled hair, a clean shave, and eyes highlighted with eyeliner. Bright blue nails, heavy army boots, a red skirt, and a tank top completed the look. And pins. Lots of pins. All kinds of LGBTQA+ flags, anarchist and pacifist symbols. I think some German band stripes. Okay, Kim, sympathetic. Olga, darling, you know I love you, but Cornell really knows what he's doing. Please trust me on that one. They talked to Olga, but kept glancing at me as if to check how I reacted. Fuck off, Kim. You didn't even trust me enough to come here on your own when I asked you to. There was a woman at Olga's side. Okay, so I guess they're referring to Kim as they. This is what I like about World of Darkness. They do include a lot of diverse people in it. And so, yeah, I like that. Next to Olga, there stood a woman, and she was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. I couldn't turn my eyes off her, I couldn't help but overhear. Well, let's be nosy. I keep saying I'm a nosy person, so let's overhear what's talking about. Lisa, cautious. Kim, you want to teach me about violence? She looked them straight in the eye. About fighting oppression? Just because your boss went to what? One mission in Afghanistan? Her Polish was peculiar, kind of mellow. Cornell winced. Lisa, leave Kim alone. He didn't know what to say, and it seemed that the whole discussion would be derailed. Maybe it was for the best I didn't let that happen. No, let's not derail the discussion. Let's keep it being productive. Okay, Olga neutral, Cornell is loyal. Okay. Hey guys, the forest, I said. The logging, the protest. Yes, I like this option. Olga unclenched her fist. Cornell looked back at her and chuckled softly. You almost punched me. The conversation was over, at least for the time being. Cornell, together with his cronies, walked toward the reporters, while Olga went back to the group of people standing in the shadow of an old oak tree. I looked at the forest. I looked at the puszcza. The clearing full of felled trees was like a gaping, bleeding wound in the chest of a friend. Ooh, I had to do something. Ah, our mission's been updated. I looked at my friends. We have to stop this logging. Yeah, like Olga said. Just like Olga said, Anya nodded excited. What they're doing is unforgivable and we have to fight. It is a very complicated situation, Bartek looked thoughtful. I liked what that guy Cornell said, that we should proceed peacefully, not to discourage the public and potential supporters. I looked at one group, and I looked at the other. The logging site. Ooh. The harvesters were dripping with black oil, and the forest stood tall, serene, and full of golden light. It looked like it could protect itself. Then I looked at the felled trees. Dead, limp, helpless. Okay, so clearly that dream was the old wolf and the weasel. Those were the two people, I guess, that were trying to unite here to help against the forest. Okay, so we go to Olga escalation or Cornell answers. I vote Cornell. Olga doesn't seem to care for us terribly much. In the limelight. Cornell owed me some explanations. Hey, wait for me! I shouted and ran after him. Hello, Maya, he said. I see you haven't come alone. He reached out his hand. Balanced, or I shook it. I'm gonna go with balanced. What was that? What was about with Olga? Because I don't know him terribly well either. I just know he's some kind of spiritual dude in the forest. Why? Do you suspect some hidden motives? I couldn't tell if he was amused or suspicious. His eyes were an uncanny shade of gray. Kind of a bad boy? Why were they arguing? I don't know if he's kind of a bad boy, but let's say why were they arguing? But seriously, that argument looked personal. I looked back at Olga and her crowd. Her heart is in the right place, but her methods are not optimal. Cornell looked me in the eyes. I know why I came to Bielorussia. Isha. If someone knows how to pronounce that properly, please correct me. I do not mind being corrected or told that I'm mispronouncing something. When the forest is under attack, it reaches out and picks someone. This time, it picked you. He seemed to believe it. The Pushta has reached out to me because she was in danger. I looked at him, skeptical, but he seemed to believe it. We have the same goal. He looked back at me. Will you help me? I had no time to answer. But before I could answer, I heard a commotion and turned around. The reporters were coming our way, but their cameras were switched off and pointed at the ground. I saw an opportunity to shine. Why weren't they filming? I had a bad feeling about this. Why weren't they filming? Funny, I thought. They should be taking photos or filming the protest. But I couldn't remember if they were when I arrived on the site. So, asked Cornell. There was a hint of impatience in his voice. The reporter shook his head and grimaced. Sorry, everyone. We can't do anything. We're not allowed to cover what's going on here. What did they mean? Suddenly I understood. I deflated. Well, my rage is creeping up. You know, I don't want to get... I kind of like having a low rage. We'll see what this balanced rage is doing too. So let's say suddenly I understood. Then it hit me. The police weren't there to protect the protesters or the press. Yeah, it must be hard to do your job when the police is watching your every step, I said, and they nodded. There was a moment of tense silence, and then it all came together. Suddenly, I understood the dream. That was the moment I was destined to intervene. Oh, maybe the weasel was supposed to represent the press, and the wolves were the protesters, so maybe I had that incorrect. The protest was too quiet, they needed inspiration. I just needed to make the reporters understand we could still use the reporters. No, I think we can still use the reporters here. You can just do it in a clever way. I looked at the protesters. Their frustration was getting to me. They didn't have any real plan. They were as lost as I was. Well, they don't seem to have a real plan. And I'm not lost, so let's just go with that one. I looked at the protesters. They were a ragtag bunch, thrown together by circumstance without any real plan or clear purpose. I looked around, put my hands in my pockets, and wandered toward the journalist. They just needed a little nudge. The cops were scared. I just wanted to be heard. Well, I guess they just needed a little nudge. I guess that means the protesters. So I think that's the best course of action. You know, if you're gonna go in and intervene in something like this, you do need a plan. So let's give them a little nudge. Inspiring. Okay, that came up. I've always wanted to be a journalist, you know, I said to the nearest one. The fourth pillar of democracy and all that, but maybe things work differently here in Poland? He looked at me with tired eyes. I winked. He smiled. Unspectacular as it was, I managed to connect, and I acted on it. Does it always look like this? I asked. I mean, is it an everyday situation that you can't report? No, answered one of them. He was tall, in his 30s. There were a few glances toward him, almost a flash of warning, but it was too late. So why weren't they filming, but why were they in Białowieża at all? Let's go for this one. Okay, now the press is neutral towards us. Wait, so why are you here at all? I asked, and then it hit me. You were sent here to find some dirt on the activists, to get something that would compromise the protests. They looked at one another, suddenly unsure of what to say. Then I heard shouts as Olga and her protesters clashed with the police, and the cameraman grabbed their gear and ran toward the action. "Remember, we want the aggressive ones," shouted one of the reporters. I could see the logo of the national TV station on his camera. Soon, we were alone. "Fuck!" Cornell swore and threw his thermal cup at the ground. It bounced, spilling hot coffee everywhere. I guess I probably could have handled that one a little bit better, but oh well, we'll see. Someone grabbed me by my shoulder. I turned and saw Kim. "This is where you exit the scene." They turned me around and gently but firmly pushed me away. "We'll be in touch," they whispered. The ugly truth. When I was on the road to the village and nobody could see me, I doubled over and vomited. I always felt violently sick when there was too much to process at once. In the whole commotion, I lost Anya and Bartek from my sight. I was alone, or so I thought. "Hey, are you all right?" a voice behind me said, and I jumped. A woman was walking toward me. Let's say we're fine. That's pretty neutral. "I'm fine," I said stiffly. She rummaged in her pocket and handed me a handkerchief. "Here," she said. "I have water as well if you need some." We walked slowly toward the village. We talked. I learned that she was an independent German reporter who'd come here about a month ago. Her name was Erica. "So why are you protesting the logging?" she asked after a few minutes of small talk. Personal images, we had to save the Pushcha. Well, yeah, you gotta save the Pushcha. I don't know if I like this balanced rage. I think I'm gonna try to get my rage lower again. I don't think I like these balanced responses. They seem a little terse to me. And plus, she might be inspired if we say Pushcha and like refer to the forest as a person. I feel like independent journalists latch on to stories like that. "I think the Pushcha is unique, and when I saw how many trees they've cut in just one afternoon, it broke my heart," I said, still shaken by the sheer number of fallen trees. "I have to do whatever I can to save the forest." I looked at her. "And why are you asking?" She looked with renewed interest. "Do you know why they are cutting down the trees?" she asked back. "Because you do know that logging is done by a government company, the state forests?" "Oh, but why?" "But why are they doing this?" I wasn't sure if I understood. Shouldn't the state forests take care that the forest was healthy? Erica reached for her notebook. "It all started with spruce bark beetles." Era looked into her notes and started explaining the whole situation. "That year, the beetles' infestation was of catastrophic proportions, and the foresters decided that the only way to stop it and save the rest of the forest was to cut down as many infected trees as fast as possible." Was cutting down trees necessary, but was the logging legal? Couldn't they just remove the dead trees? Yeah, why not just remove the dead trees? Maybe if they removed the dead trees, the infestation wouldn't spread. I tried to find a solution. "They might do that, but dead trees are what make the forest unique," Eric smiled. "There are 20 times more species living on a dead spruce tree than on an alive one." Was cutting down trees necessary? And who cares if the logging's legal? If the government's going to do it, they're going to do it. Is cutting down trees the only way to stop the infestation? I asked, confused. The foresters state that this is the only way, she said. Some biologists argue that they are cutting wrong trees and doing it too late to not change anything. But was the logging legal? But is the logging legal? I wanted to know. Opinions differ, but such massive logging in a UNESCO-listed area might be illegal, Erica answered. Did they have to intervene at all? Couldn't they just leave the Pusha alone and let nature take its course? I asked. That's one of the options, Erica admitted. But there's a drought, and no one is sure if the forest would survive on its own. The situation was more complex than I thought, and Erica's answers did nothing to clear the picture. What was the truth? I tried to understand her point of view. I'm more curious about the truth. I'm all for, people's points of view, but if we can find the truth, let's go for the truth. Stop beating around the bush, please, I asked. I need to know the truth. I'm just doing my job, Erica shrugged. I described all aspects of the situation to you. But it's up to you to decide what you want to do. Yeah, that's true. I like that. I agree with that. Everyone has their jobs. I nodded. That was her job. My job was to do something about the situation. At least I was sure that they were cutting down the trees, and the Pusha needed my help. Didn't have to explain myself. I asked her to stop and listen. What else could I do? Well, let's ask her to stop and listen. That clearly had an effect on us. Plus, we're very spiritual people. We're so heavily spiritual, we might as well lean into it. Why not? Stop for a moment and just listen, I asked Erica. We stood there, listening to the birds and the wind and the trees. We breathed in the smell of the forest. We felt the sun on our faces. That's why I cannot let them cut down the trees, I said. She looked skeptical. You're not the only one feeling helpless, she sighed. I'm just helping you make an informed choice. Okay, I didn't want to listen. Well, no. And I know I said I wanted to get my rage down, but I don't know if that's what I want to say. Let's ask her what's right and what's wrong. So what should I do when I feel something is wrong? I asked, exasperated. Do you believe that people can be evil? She asked back. Some people were bad. We could do bad things for sure. I'm gonna say we could do bad things for sure because that implies that everyone has the capacity to do bad things, which is what I personally believe in. Everyone has the capacity. Some people do really shitty things, I shrugged. But is it just their actions or their nature? I said nothing. What's the matter? She asked. I told her about my anger. I admitted to my helplessness. I shared my fear. Maya doesn't seem angry to me. At least that's not the impression I've been getting. Let's say share my fear, because I don't think she's helpless. I mean, I would hope we're guiding her down a path where, she's autonomous and takes control and takes charge. But we all have fear, so let's share fear. Something wasn't right with this whole situation. I didn't know what it was, and that scared me. I took a deep breath. Then I remembered what Cornell had said. All that mystical stuff. And they said that the forest needs my help. I shook my head. It's a lot to take in. There was that foul smell back there. She looked at me with a weird expression. What smell? Smell wasn't the point. How come she didn't smell it? Well, how come she didn't smell it? You didn't smell it? The harvesters reeked of something. Like meat that's been rotting in acid, only worse. I couldn't even find the words to describe it, but the memory of the foulness still clung to the back of my throat, swimming in my sinuses. She looked at me with a strange expression on her face, as though she wanted to say something and then thought better of it. You'll learn on your own time if you stay here long enough, she said, clearly wanting to drop the topic. Okay, let's drop it. I shrugged. Cryptic remarks never did anything for me. The situation was complicated enough as it was. I just hoped I hadn't made things worse. When I opened the door, I found Anya and Bartek sitting on Anya's bed. They were a little flustered and were nonchalantly trying to look like I hadn't interrupted anything. Were they kissing? Aww. We lost sight of you, Bartek said apologetically. I'm glad you made it back in one piece. So how was your day? I had a chat with the reporters. Yeah, had a chat with the reporters. That's what we did mostly, wasn't it? I had a nice chat with the reporters, I grinned, and I learned a thing or two. Anya frowned. I heard that you can't trust them. Bartek nodded. Of course not. He looked for a word. They're hyenas. Bartek had a point. I learned a lot. I met a lot of new people. Well, we did meet a lot of new people. I met some very interesting people, I said, still excited. Yeah, they looked like a colorful bunch, Anya grinned. Bartek rolled his eyes. Colorful and uninvited. They sure are passionate. They argue between themselves more than they argue with the loggers, I added. I learned a lot. Well, what else did we learn? Well, we did learn about, the government was the one logging. Did you know that the government supported the logging even when it was illegal? I shared my dismay. If they support it, it can't be illegal, Bartek crossed his arms. Of course it can! I threw my arms up, frustrated. Alright, Bartek had a point. And now Bartek is loyal to us, okay. You may have a point, Bartek, I admitted. I barge in and try to solve problems that I may not yet understand. That's cool, he smiled. This whole business is a mess. And that's all I wanted to share. I shrugged. Just another day in Bielavisha. We sat for a while in silence. There's more to see here in Bielavisha, Bartek smiled at me. You should visit, I'm not going to try. Budi Teramishki, Sri Lanka, to the open-air museums and the bison. The logging is not all that happens here. Yeah, we can go see it. That sounds like fun. That sounds like something I would want to do. I'd love to see it all, I sighed. And I'll do that as soon as the situation with the Pushcha is resolved. And how's the search for your roots going? Asked Bartek, clearly wanting to change the topic. Share what I learned wasn't something I wanted to discuss. Well, let's share what we've learned. I mean, they're our friends. We want friends. At least these two. They say that when the forest is in need, it reaches out to people, I said. And for some reason, this time it reached out to me. Wow. Anya looked impressed. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think, but if you need something, just let me know. I like Anya. I just sat there, looking through the window. The day'd been full on and I was exhausted. I didn't notice when I fell asleep. I can do anything. It's quiet now. You know, yet I know deep down inside that something isn't right. Alright, I know this is gonna get rid of all my rage, but I'm gonna sneak. Because that's what I do. I am a rogue. I do really like the artwork in this game. I really love the style from all of the World of Darkness games. Well, at least the IPs that I'm aware of. I really like their style. I'm sneaking through the forest to the logging site. It's getting dark. The light seeps away through as though there are millions of tiny punch holes in the sky through which you can escape. And the darkness starts to pour in. I welcome the darkness. I know what I will see. Let's not quite welcome the darkness yet. Let's say I know what I'll see. And I see bodies strewn across the ground, bloodied, maimed with their limbs torn from destroyed torsos. I can see some of them are still alive, still struggling for air, still trying to live. They are all trees, fallen trees, still alive, still struggling for air. There's the stench. I see movement in the darkness, but I'm not alone. Well, let's try to make her a little bit more observant. From the tone I'm getting, you know, just these answers are not only driving the story and how things go, but they're also adding to her skills, obviously, so let's see movement in the darkness. I see shapes moving in the darkness. They have long skeletal arms. They are wrapped in glistening black intestines, and each arm has a wide, gaping mandible full of whirring blades. They snap at me blindly. I can feel the forest by my side. Some of my new friends have horns. Some have antlers. Their eyes shine in the dark, and they are ready. They are furious. I can feel their ancient anger merge with mine. I howl ancient oaths. I howl ancient oaths. I invoke the moon. I spill blood. The spirits of the forest move, and I am with them, biting off heads and tearing off limbs. We are a nightmare come true. Then I wake up. Will identity find out what's happening to you? I gasped and bolted upright. I was alone. The sun was setting, and in the deep red light, the room looked like it was bathed in blood. My pillow and duvet were on the ground, and I was sweating bullets. I looked at my legs. When did they become so hairy? I could have sworn I'd shaved them that morning. Where is Anya? It looks like we just fell asleep in the middle of the day if it's about to be sunset. Was she in the room? Oh no, she was probably out with Bartek, of course. Alright. Well, that is chapter 3. We'll go ahead and start that off. I don't know if I'll be able to stream next week or if it'll be Emily, but let us know what you guys think. I'm enjoying this. I think I kind of like this style a little bit better than Vampire the Masquerade, at least the Shadows of New York and Coders of New York, but it is a little bit wordy. I will say that. That's what I think so far. It's a little bit wordier than Vampire the Masquerade. But yeah, let us know what you guys think. We thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys next time. Bye!